Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hangry Mexican. Thank you for listening. Now, we all get them, some sooner than others. I'm talking about a haircut, whether it's for a special event like a birthday party or a wedding, or you're looking to get a job and you want to look your best, or just for anything else. We go and get a haircut, and our barbers and our hairstylists, they mean so much to us because of the way that the haircut makes us feel, almost like a brand new person every time we get them. It's a good feeling, and it's a two-way street, really. Not only does it feel good for the person that is getting the haircut, but also for the one giving it. So I visited Jackie at the Barbershop at the Collection in Oxnard, and I talked to her about the philosophy behind the hairstyling and being a barber, and what that actually does whenever somebody gets a haircut, what that does for the barber. And it was a really interesting conversation, and just hearing how she got into the barber business and why she loves being a barber and a hairstylist so much. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of a haircut, but also the barbers are sometimes underrated, but when we go, sometimes we tell them our deepest, darkest secrets. So why is that? So let's get to the interview. DJ, roll that music. Jackie, thank you so much for joining this podcast today. You have a very unique, not only set of skills, but also a unique workshop.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. This is exciting.
So tell me about the concept you have going here. I know you're working at a barbershop, but it's not like any old barbershop. What's so unique about it?
So this is actually my business partner's vision. He opened the Barbershop brand 2 years ago, and he likes old things, and he likes to bring them back to life. And so he has this mentality but he has this way, he just lives in a way where he likes old things and brings them back to life, like his old cars and everything. And so he had a vision of opening a barbershop, and he really liked the old classic feel of it. And so he started collecting these old vintage chairs that are way over 100 years old, finds them like dead, and then brings them back to life. Yeah. And so he put those in his shop. And let me back up a little bit. George is one of my original students from Paul Mitchell School, and he was probably one of my best students. And we've always kept in contact. And when he opened his salon, he would ask, I would kind of mentor him through it. I mean, he'd have questions about, managing people and stuff like that. And I started working at his shop one day a week just to kind of, get a feel for it and see where I could, guide him and tell him, hey, you should work on this, you should do this. And then he had such a unique feel to this barbershop. We all wear white button-up shirts and, dress slacks and nice shoes and nice hats, and we're all very groomed. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So last June, he came to me and he said, hey, I have an opportunity for you. And I was like, yeah, what's that? He said, the collection would like to know if we'd want to open a shop. And when he said we, I was like, oh, so you want to be in business together? So without hesitation, I was on the phone with my lawyer, and the ball started getting rolling. And so from June to last year to February 1st of this year, we now have the second location of the barbershop.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And just for everybody that's listening to this, you're actually, as you're talking to me, you're cutting hair. So That's awesome. Is there like a technique that you use to just be able to get those perfect cuts every time?
I've been doing this now. My hair birthday was July 31st. So I'm now doing this 26 years.
Wow.
I started in high school. I was always told that I was going to be an engineer like my dad and take over the family business. And I was just like, no, I want to do hair. And so my parents let me move to New York City for a year right out of high school.
Wait a minute, you were in New York City?
I moved to New York City.
Oh, man. Okay, well, how was that experience?
Oh, my goodness. So, I had a rough time in high school and was like, Dad, let me join the service, because everybody in my family was in the service at one point in their life. And he's like, no. And he comes from the Vietnam era. And he was an Air Forceman. He was a flew rescue during that time. So I understand his hesitation. So I was like, Dad, I want to, I want life experiences and I want to travel and this and that. And he's like, okay, well, I'll make you a deal. You can travel for a year. I'll pay for your living, but you have to get a job and pay for everything else. So I was like, deal. So me and my friend were like conspiring. Oh my God, we literally pulled out an atlas and we're like, where do we want to live? And so we're like, New York City. So 2 days later, I was on a plane to New York City.
Well, have you been to New York City before?
No, never.
So why New York City?
I was so over Riverside. That's where I'm originally from. I was just so over it. There was just no culture. There was just really nothing for me there.
Yeah.
And like my entire family, extended family, and their extended family, like our roots run very deep there. And so I was just like, there's got to be more to Riverside than this.
Yeah.
And I would get like super excited when we go on family vacations because they're like, we're leaving California. So yeah, he let me go to New York. And I remember my dad was working up north and he drove all night and he handed me $2,000. And he said, okay, make it work. And so I got on the plane and flew to New York and we got in at 2 a.m. And so we were, when the plane landed, we got there 2 a.m. We went to Penn Station. I don't know why we went to Penn Station, but that's where we were. And so we were like, okay, we need to figure out where we're going to live. And this is when like the internet was not out. There was no looking at Craigslist. It was like we had to wait till the paper came out. So I'm going to age myself. And so at that moment, I was sitting on the steps of Penn Station, and that's when I grew up. I was like, oh my God, my dad can't come get me. I'm 3,000 miles away. If something happens, it's on me now.
Yeah.
And so, the paper came out. We found a place to live, and it was great. I lived in the city for 6 months, and then I moved out to Montauk, Long Island for the other 6.
Wow.
And then on day 363, my dad calls me. He's like, your year's almost up in 2 days. There's a plane ticket on your way. You need to be on that plane and go to school. So I was like, okay.
Wow.
So I was on that plane. I had to keep my end of the bargain. So I went to school. And I went to beauty school. And my dad was just not really excited about me being a hairdresser. He was like, you're not going to make any money. This is not a career for you. And so he was very frustrated. And it wasn't his plan for me, and I understand that now as an adult.
Yeah.
So I probably 22, 23, I got in a serious relationship and moved up to Santa Barbara and was up here, and I worked at the University of Santa Barbara as a sound tech, like a sound engineer, like the telephone systems and all that, and security systems.
Oh, okay.
And then my partner at the time was running the Supercuts in Goleta and Santa Barbara. She's like a GM, so I would work there part-time. Mm-hmm. And then I would do that, and I was just kind of like not feeling like super inspired. Like I was like, I don't really want to do hair, and I don't really want to sit behind a desk. So I was feeling like less inspired and was kind of coming at a crossroads. It's like we all do, like in our 20s, like what is our career path? What are we meant to do? And so when my partner at the time, she's like, Paul Mitchell's coming to town. They're opening a beauty school. And I never thought about being a teacher. And she's like, well, you teach everybody in the salon everything. Why don't you'd be a great teacher? So I was like, okay. So I went there, and it was this little tiny school on Milpas Street. And when you think of Paul Mitchell, you think of like big, glamorous, lights and fancy and everything. When we went in there, I was like, was not that. It was very small and kitschy and not put together well. So when I walked in, this lady with bright orange hair and tattoos from her neck all the way down to her feet started walking towards me. It was like, who is this? And she was the director. Her name was Jen Johnson, and she was just probably one of the most awesome people I've ever met. And she interviewed me for a long time, and then that lit a fire under me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to work at this school. And she told me, this is not the school we're going to be at. We're going to be at 525 Anacapa. And so, of course, I'm nosy and have to see. So I went over there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be an amazing place. And for 6 months, I emailed her, and I was like, please hire me. I don't care what I have to do. I'll clean. I just want to be part of this. And so 2007, the day before Christmas, she calls me. She's like, okay, we'll hire you. You're going to start the day after Christmas. So I was like, sweet, canceled all my plans. I'll be there. And so I was there for, 13 years. Wow. And it was a lot of life lessons in those 13 years.
Wow.
I met a lot of great people. I have very successful students. If you were in my phase 2, which was an honors program, and I used to refer to them as the Olympics of the school. They are now like Emmy winners. Wow. Celebrity stylists, shop owners. They've come up with their own products. They're all still very successful, and I'm very proud of them. Wow. And look at George. George has created this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how did you? Why hair? Like what about hair do you love enough that you got into doing haircuts for a living and hairstyling?
So my good friend in high school, her name was Golden Day. And she had really long hair, and we were just hanging out, and she's like, oh, I need a haircut. And I'm like, it doesn't look that hard. And she's like, do you want to cut it? And I'm like, sure. So she found some like rusty scissors that her mom had, and my mom would always have me and my sister in the beauty shop or salon every month. We always had to get our hair cut, and then we were teenagers, so we got our hair colored. And we could never have roots. Like, our hair always had to be perfect. So I just remember what my hairdresser did, and would always watch her in the mirror. So I just mimicked what I saw, and it was just like a simple one-length haircut. And my friend Golden Day was just like, oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much. You cut off exactly what I wanted. And then that turned into like, oh, Jackie cut my hair and this and that. And so then it was like, oh, cut my hair. Some haircuts were easy, and some were just, horrible disasters, but you learn from your failures. And then I had a boyfriend in high school who went into the Marines, and that started like me cutting men's hair. So he'd come home from leave and have like nicks all over his head. I was like, what's wrong with your haircut? And he'd be like, well, I would go to the base barber, and they cut your hair in like 60 seconds. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, let's go buy some clippers. We can figure this out. Yeah. So then I started cutting his hair. And then that turned out, I was like, oh, Jackie cuts my hair. So then I started doing, backyard garage haircuts.
Yeah. And
that was always fun. And it was a great place where people would meet and, talk about things that were going on. And while I was like even cutting hair, they would, tell me like their deepest, darkest secret. And it's kind of like cheap therapy. So I liked the way everybody felt when they left me. They felt good about themselves. They felt good about the decisions that they were making. Gave them things to think about of whatever was going on in their life.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. You get a new haircut and you feel like a new person all of a sudden, that you can take on the world.
Yeah. Yeah, so just to back up a little bit, when I was in New York, I went over there with one length hair, probably just as long as yours, Claire. And it was hot, and there was no, super cuts or anywhere place like where we were in Montauk. So my friend Albert had a buzz cut. And I was like, oh. And he was an awesome guy. And I was like, Albert, cut my hair. And there was a picture I gave him of like Drew Barrymore. And so I want my hair cut just like this. And he's like, okay. So for like 2 hours, he cut my hair, and I just kept looking down at the puddle of hair around me. And so he's like, okay, girl, I think I'm done. I'm like, okay. So I go and look in the mirror, and I'm like, oh, ooh. Not quite exactly like the picture, but okay.
Oh, man.
And so then I got really brave at that second and was like, Albert, what number do you shave your hair to? And he's like, a 1. I was like, I want you to do that to me.
Wow.
And so he shaved my head. And I was freaked out, and I had dreams for 3 nights that it was a dream. I'm like, oh no, I still have my beautiful long hair. And so I was coming home shortly after that, and I told my mom, I was like, hey, I got a haircut. And she's like, oh, okay, that's fine, honey. And I'm like, well, it's a little short. And she's like, oh, no, that's cute. That's in right now. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll see you soon. So when we got off the plane, my best friend walked up to my mom, and I literally walked past my mom. She didn't recognize me.
Wow.
And she's just like, where's Jacqueline? And I'm like, oh, I'm right here. My mom started crying. My little niece went and sit next to me. They're like, oh, my God, your dad's going to kill you. So then that haircut, set off, a chain of events in my life.
Ooh,
so
like
my dad,
what?
So, my dad was like, I came home, and he's like, what did you do? He's like, he gave me a big hug, and he was crying. He's like, I'm so glad you're home. And then he's like, go see your grandpa. He's dying to see you. And I was close with my grandfather.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, no, I'm scared. I was more scared to see him than my dad. And so I went and saw my grandpa, and he's like, oh, Mija, I love you, but let your hair grow out. And then we talked about my my adventures in New York, and he next day he passed away. So then I was like, oh my God, that's how my grandpa's gonna remember me, the bald blonde hair. So then I had to give a eulogy, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to go home with my whole family.
Wow.
So in that, I was like, wow.
So did you grow up in a very conservative family, would you say?
At certain points in our life, it got very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it was conservative, sometimes it wasn't. And I didn't know the difference, but I recognize it now.
So then how did doing hairstyling, would you say doing that broke this conservative lifestyle that you had been growing up with?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
Liberated. I felt like I could
That's a great word.
I felt like I could be who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, every time I got my hair done, I felt most comfortable in my skin there.
Wow. That's the amazing thing about getting the haircuts. A lot of people, they don't even think about that. They feel it. I know, every time that I get a haircut, which by the way, I come here and I get my haircut because I just love this place. I walk out, and I always walk out with this big old smile on my face. It really does set the whole day. Especially if you get a haircut early in the day or first thing in the morning, it just propels you throughout the whole day. Nothing bad could happen that's going to put you in a bad mood. So that's right. I think it's really awesome that you're doing this for people.
Yeah.
And that at the same time, it does bring you pleasure as well, right?
Absolutely. Probably for the 26 years that I've been cutting has been mostly in Santa Barbara, and I have a lot of lifelong clients and have turned into mentors and great friends. Yeah, so it's been wonderful. I love my job. I haven't worked in 26 days. I always told my mom, I guess when I was little, which I'm pretty sure I didn't say, but she swears I did, that I would go work with her at the DMV. And I'm like, no, I would never do that.
Wow. By the way, for anybody just listening, So Jackie here is cutting hair at the moment, and at the same time, I'm doing something a little different here. Normally, whether in the studio or we're at a cafe restaurant somewhere, and we have microphone stands and the whole thing. But Claire, lovely Claire here, is actually holding the microphone. So we're just all loosey-goosey today and going with something different. But Claire, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. I'm going to take a sip of my libation here. Now, beverages are something that you offer clients.
Yes, we offer a variety of beverages, anywhere from, non-adult to adult beverages. So beer and wine are available, whiskey is available, champagne, water, juice, soda sometimes. So yeah, everyone, we don't want to exclude anyone, we want to include everyone.
Now, where does that concept come from? Because not all the barbershops do this.
It's just like I don't know how it started, to be honest. I know when my mom would get her hair done, they'd give her a glass of wine. Uh-huh. And so I'd ask my dad, what did you get? And he's like, nothing. So that always stuck with me. And then George started doing that. And then when I worked at Chandler's, which is a high-end men's salon in Santa Barbara, Jillian Ireland, who's the owner of that, she offered very high-end, beverages, like beers, IPAs, high-end whiskeys, champagne, wine.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, this is nice, and everybody was like very receptive to it.
Well, I got to tell you, like this place here, the Barbershop, is a place where men can come and get pampered. But like women usually go and get, go to the beauty salons, and it's like a spa day for them. But it's rare that you find something similar for men. Mm-hmm. But you come here, it's almost like you're walking into a blast from the past because of the chairs, because of the decor. I mean, even the floor here is just made out of pennies, which is really unique. I've never seen this in any other barbershop other than in yours. And
yes, the floor is a conversation that George and I had one evening when we were thinking about what would be the most unique way of to draw people in. Like, what could we do to draw people in? So I was like, and we were sitting at Lucky Penny in Santa Barbara. And so we looked at the penny wall, and I'm like, maybe we should do a penny floor. He's like, yeah, a penny floor. So we did the math, and we're like, we totally could do this. So we, I bought the pennies and not realizing it was going to be 500 pounds of pennies in my car. And I'm like, oh my God, my new car is going to go to crap right now. And the amount that we budgeted for this was 4 times as much, because the labor was it took an hour and a half to do like 1 square foot.
Wow.
And we had friends and family, even some of the barbers came to help that work here now. Some of our resident barbers were just like, this is a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah, no, sorry.
Well, what's the longest you've taken cutting hair?
Longest?
Yeah, the longest time. 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, a whole day?
Maybe when I first started out, it took a whole day to do the one haircut. Yeah. I don't know. Now, not that much anymore, because I can get in and out of a haircut pretty quickly. Yeah.
Now, I asked that, and you say pretty quickly, but it's not like in other places where you're in 10 minutes and you're out. Like, you actually take your time here. What is the philosophy behind that you have? Like, what is the difference in your opinion between taking 10 minutes to cut the hair and then to getting the client out and on to the next, versus just taking your time and go slow and go easy and get the best results?
So when you understand bone structure, hair texture, not everybody has the same hair texture, hair length. Once you understand that and mastered that, then you approach it was like, okay, I understand this haircut. I have a blueprint. This is what I'm going to do. Just like that.
Wow.
So I'm curious, for those listening, hello, Hangry Mexican listeners. podcast listeners, I was wondering, for those that wanted to get started in the barbering business or haircutting business, where do people start, and what are some tips that they could start doing today if that's the career they want to choose?
Hold on one moment, Claire, and I'll answer that for you. By the way, this is Bobby. He is my favorite customer, and he made an appointment to get his hair cut today, and I was like, perfect. He's the perfect guy to sit here while I cut his hair and do this interview. Who's your favorite baseball team?
The Dodgers.
Okay, good answer.
Okay, so your question, Claire, was if for anybody that wants to get into the barber business, where do they even start?
You mean just like to open a shop right out of school, or?
Yeah, I mean, you got like a dream, like what you started with. You got a passion for cutting hair, but they don't know what to necessarily do with it. What should they be doing if that's what their passion is?
So there's a lot of moving parts when you open a shop or even open a small business. I was fortunate enough that I took some small business classes years ago and was like, one day I'm going to use this and open my own shop. So business classes, absolutely. Opening this place was very educating.
Why do you say that?
Because you have to worry about, you basically have to get everyone's blessing to get to open the shop, like permit wise. Like, okay, the lighting's good, the plumbing is good, the HVAC is good, your signs are good, the floor is good, like the chairs are good. Everybody had a say in what the shop was going to be. And so I was just like, wow, you just don't, I remember my dad opening his business and it was just like, got a business license? Okay, we're good. And that's how I thought it was going to be. But then when I, obviously took my small business classes and was like, oh no, that's not how it is.
Wow. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of regulations. They don't make it easy anymore.
No, I understand that. And I had a lot of good mentors that, own businesses, and they're just like, look out for this, get this insurance, do this, ask for this. So yeah, I've been pretty lucky. And owning my own shop was always the end game. Because I was like, I want to do all these things with my license. I want to travel. I want to do hair for movies. I want to do a lot of things with my license. And then I was teaching, and my students were like, why don't you open your own shop? And I'm like, now's not the good time. It'll present itself when it's ready. And now it's ready. Now here I am.
So what did your dad do? What was his business?
He owned a telecommunications business.
Did you ever work for him?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, all the time, pretty much. So if I wanted anything, he was like, okay, you can go pull wire. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go pull wire in this hot attic with like asbestos and fiberglass everywhere. But I did it, and I understand, hard work, and he kept his word, and he's like, okay, now we can go get whatever you want.
That's really interesting you say that, because like a lot of fathers, it seems, they have a girl, a daughter, and they go, okay, no hard work for you. No, this is like a man's job, blah, blah, blah. But it seems like your dad really just got you in the trenches.
He did. I think, because I have an older sister, and she was, she was the princess, I guess you could say. And anything that I wanted, I had to work for, which I am grateful for every life lesson my father has ever taught me.
Were you the firstborn?
No, I was the second. I was the baby.
Oh, interesting.
But I was like very like headstrong and like had a mouth on me, and it was even from like day one. But yeah, I mean, I've been working since I was 13. I was like a lifeguard. I was a library page. I worked at restaurants. I worked for my dad. And I liked working.
Wow. What was the craziest job that you had to do?
I did. So when I first got my license, I did hair for an industry, the adult industry. But that was probably one of the craziest jobs I've ever had.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, and that's how I ended up at Supercuts, because I told the manager, I was like, I really don't want to work here, but I just need to tell my parents that I work here. So if you could just keep me on the schedule like one day a week.
That's great. Wow. Yeah, it's funny where life takes you, just that journey, and I'm sure that made you grow up quickly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that for 2 years, and then I was like, I'm done with this. But yeah, it was good. It was like life lessons learned there too, and
Yeah. Wow.
I definitely believe when people say life is an adventure. I'm like, yes.
So where else have you traveled to?
All over America, especially when I worked for Paul Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my first training with Paul Mitchell, we went to Nashville, and that's where I met my best friend, Michael Funkhauser. Just a wonderful guy. He even married me and Tawny.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have been in a lot of like situations. Like we did an escape room and like knocked it out like very quick. And the guy was very shocked. He said, "You guys finished pretty quick." And I'm like, "We've been in some life or death situations. We're good. We're good under pressure."
I've always wanted to do one of those rooms, the escape rooms, and I always think it might be kind of hard to do, but they give you, for anybody that doesn't know what an escape room is, they give you like a timer, right? A timer,
Yeah.
and you have to escape during that time. You have to find all the clues, figure out how to escape. So it takes a lot of teamwork.
It does, and you find out who your team is when you get in there. I kept trying to tell my wife, I'm like, this is not a scary thing. It's a puzzle.
Yeah.
And so, like, if there was a loud noise or something, she'd like scream, like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I don't know, something's gonna jump out." And I'm like, "Nothing is gonna jump out."
Oh,
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Claire's afraid a lot. That's why she doesn't watch horror movies. I usually am the one that wants to see things, but I don't know. If I watch a horror movie, depends on how crazy it is. I may not want to watch it by myself either, but I would watch it anytime, like at night or anything. Claire just won't watch it.
I have a
at
hard
all.
time going to Vegas on Pear Blossom Highway. That's where they filmed that movie, The Hills Have Eyes. So going through there, I'm like, oh my God.
Wow. There's one movie that till this day I cannot watch, whether it's with anybody else or by myself, and that's The Exorcist.
I have a good story about The Exorcist.
Ooh, what is it?
Okay, so my dad bought VCRs because like VCRs were like the new thing coming out, and he bought 2 movies. He bought 48 Hours and he bought The Exorcist. And so I was little, and my parents went out for the evening, and my sister's like, "You want to watch The Exorcist?" I'm like, "Sure." So I watched it and was like mortified for months. Still am as an adult. So my sister and I were going to Catholic school at the time, and we had church every Wednesday. And so we were going in line to church, and she found me, and like there would always be like this weird moaning sound in the church. But now I know it's the gears of the bells that would make the bells ring.
Yeah.
And so my sister was like, "That's where they keep her." She found me in line to tell me that's where they keep her. And so then I freaked out, and we both got in trouble. It was just,
Oh no.
it was awesome. But scary at the same time.
Wow, man, what an older sister.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's go back to doing all the hard work. So with your dad, and you worked all these other jobs. Did you at any point feel like, you know what, maybe I should just do something else? Maybe I should just not even cut hair for a living. I should just focus on something else. Was there a point?
There was a point, and that's how I ended up being an instructor for Paul Mitchell, because I was, still doing a desk job at UCSB, and then I was doing hair at Supercuts, and I was just like, there's got to be something more satisfying than this. And then when I met Jen Johnson, that fire was reignited, and I was like, got inspired again. And then when I went to teach, I didn't realize, I thought maybe it was just going to be a small group of people, not a group of like 50 people. And they slapped a mic on me and literally pushed me into the center of the room, and they're all, "Teach what you love." And I was like, oh. So I was never a public speaker.
Yeah.
And was very like scared and nervous. My voice was all shaky. But then I got into it and started interacting with the students and stuff, and they were receptive to me, and so it felt great. And then from that moment on, I was like, wow, I love being a teacher.
Wow. Do you still teach every now and then?
I'll do a guest artist. So my best friend and his wife, they opened Cosmetron Academy in Lompoc. It's a barbering academy.
Oh, wow.
So if you are thinking of a career in barbering, I know it's a hike, but you'll get the best education from those two. They are they're wonderful people. They have a lot of knowledge. They have way over 20 years experience. Laura's a phenomenal colorist and knows everything about color.
Yeah.
I mean, she can make your hair look like $1 bajillion, even if you don't have any hair.
Yeah.
And Michael, he's probably one of the better cutters that I've ever met in my life. Like, he understands symmetry and head shape just like I do. And I think that's why we click, because we can totally nerd out together on a haircut.
So if you get that blueprint in your head, if you understand how that symmetry works, does that just make it super easy to do any hairstyle that's imaginable?
Yeah, because I understand. And maybe this is because I have a math background, but I understand geometry, I understand weight, I understand movement, I understand density.
Yeah.
And so then you put that all together with hair structure and bone structure of the head, you have an awesome haircut.
So have you ever had a client that didn't really know what they wanted? So, usually when you go to a barbershop, sit down, then you're asked, what are you looking for today? Or the other way around, maybe they tell you exactly what they want from the get-go. But have you ever had somebody that just kind of shows up, don't know what they want, and just say, you can do whatever you want?
Yes, those are my favorite. Because I know they've been getting bad haircuts.
Yeah.
Because I can tell. Like, the weight is off, the length is off.
Wow.
They either, if they have a big face, you don't want to walk around like you have like a dinner plate for a face. So there's ways to accentuate that. And people, especially with like women's haircuts, like, I want to chop it all off. And I'm like, no, you don't. Yeah. You don't want to do that. And same with men, if they have long, beautiful hair and maybe they just need a few styling tips.
Yeah.
If guys, want to go like really short on the sides, but have like a really high pointy occipital bone, and then they're gonna look like an egghead. Like, think of Bert from Bert and Ernie. I'm like, that's what you're gonna look like if I do this haircut on you. I go, we can do it, but just let me adjust it in a way that's gonna make it look more complementary to your head shape.
Yeah.
I'm curious what haircut and style trends you've seen over the years that maybe have been like hits and misses. Like, what are some interesting ones that in your experience?
In junior high, it was the bowl cut. So like they called it the bowl cut. It was like shaved underneath, and then like literally your mom put a bowl on your head and cut the long hair around it. Well, now it's called like a slick back or a gentleman's cut.
Wait a minute, is that the one you had? Or what did you have as a kid?
Well, yeah, something like that for a little while.
You probably had like the Dorothy Hamill graduation haircut.
Probably.
Wait, repeat that. I didn't have the microphone on you. You had that haircut too, right?
Yeah, I was like a little blonde, straight, toe-haired little kid, and so I think it was kind of like that for a little while. Then my hair got really curly. So.
Oh, Jackie, we're gonna have to show you a picture. It's hilarious.
What else have I seen? Have yet to see the flat top come back. Every now and then I get very excited when somebody comes in. It's usually like the older generation's like, can you do a flat top? I'm like, yes, I can. Sit down.
Wow. Did you ever have to do the Rachel?
Oh, yeah. I have a good story about that one, too.
Or please tell.
So the Rachel haircut, she had all that volume in her hair and she had all those layers. And I went to hair shows and her stylist was there and he was like promoting these round brushes. And so, like, buy this round brush and you can get the same volume as, Jennifer Aniston on Friends. And we're like, okay, so we buy all of them. And, like, this one lady was like, I've already bought your brushes. I've bought your products. Like, what are you doing? And they're like, and he's just like, she was really putting the pressure on him. He's like, and he pulls away from the mic and he's like, you know what? She just has a really big head. So that's how you get all that volume. So I was like, oh. Head structure.
Oh, man. Wow.
I'm surprised, Oscar, you know what the Rachel haircut is.
Well, I am from that era, Like, I'm like, I think at the tail end of the millennial spectrum. So, I even know about Johnny Carson.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Claire doesn't know who Johnny Carson is. I could tell.
But I don't don't remember what his hair looked like, but at least I know. I always tried to get the Rachel haircut when I was in junior high and high school. I'd always say like front layers, like Jennifer Aniston on Friends. So
Yep.
I identify quite well. But I'm surprised you knew what that was, Oscar.
It was the Rachel haircut, or or referred to as the Friends haircut.
Wow. Is that the most difficult one you've had to do?
That took me a minute because I didn't understand layers at first, and I did them backwards. And a stylist that I was working with at that time, she's like, "Why do you do everything backwards?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And so again, another learning opportunity. And so she went through it and it broke it down to me, because like nobody had ever broken down to me. Like I always mimicked what I saw. And so she's like, "No, do it this way," and then bam, I got it. So as soon as you explain something to someone that already kind of has it, and then you break it down even more, then that person's going to get it, and that light bulb goes on.
Do you feel like you learn better as if you have visual aids, or if you're just somebody that kind of gets it just by being told about it?
No, I need visual.
Okay.
I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
I had a student who would keep his head down, and it would drive me nuts to no end. And I'm like, "Tyler, what did I just say?" And he verbatim would repeat back. So he learned through audio.
Wow. Yeah, man. I find that really, really difficult. But at the same time, I'm somebody that if I have to take notes, like if I'm at a meeting, or if I'm if I'm training for something, I do it by actually being hands-on. And I mean, even at work, for example, when I was training for a new system and a new process, I rarely took notes. I took the notes that I needed to, but for everything else, like if I'm actually in tune with what's going on, I find it really easy to remember things and learn faster that way. But definitely, I'm also a visual kind of person, that I need to see it and then get my hands dirty and actually do it.
I got it. Yep, that's how I learn. I gotta do it. I gotta fail, and I gotta do it again to get it right.
So, how did you take rejection? When that haircut didn't come out the way that they wanted or you wanted?
It was hard, and I would take it to heart and just be like very upset about it and think about like what went wrong in that haircut. And then, over the years you get calloused and you're like, "Okay, suck it up. This is what you need to do. This is how you approach that." So now, as a new learner, your feelings get hurt and you're like, "What do you mean? I just put my heart and soul into this," and you hate it. So once you pull back all that and get a little more callous and a little more knowledge, you understand.
Wow. So what's something life-changing that doing hair did for you?
I get a little choked up about this, but
It's okay.
it let me meet the love of my life. Now we're going to have a baby. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what changed me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is awesome. This is why I wanted to talk to you, because I feel that there's a lot of things out there, a lot of unique positions, unique jobs, things that people do that may be so overlooked, but it changes people for the better a lot of the times.
Other than your doctor, we're the only profession that really touches you. What do you think about it? And
love it.
And any like major event in your life, a hairdresser or a barber is part of it.
Yeah.
Like when you got married, Chuck did your hair.
Yep.
And you had your stylist do yours, right?
And before my job interview, I came to see you to get my hair set and in place. So that was a big moment for me. Yeah. And I'm sure it helped me get the job.
And my haircuts and styles are very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for every milestone. This is why I think barbers in particular, are not going anywhere anytime soon, because you're right. They are part of every milestone in life. Even, I mean, you just cut, I don't know how old your
Bobby?
Yeah.
I think he's 7.
So 7. So you cut a 7-year-old's hair, and imagine, like a few years from now, when he comes back as a teen, he'll remember all that stuff, and
Yeah.
he's gonna say, that's the day that I got a new bike.
Yeah. We talk. Him and I have great conversations. We talk about the Dodgers. He talks about Little League. He talks about his little brothers and sisters and how he likes being the older brother. I mean, he's a great kid. I don't have a lot of kids in my clientele, but I'll definitely take him any day.
Well, before we end the podcast, I just want to give you the opportunity to just say something else that maybe I didn't ask, or that you just kind of want to get off your chest, or just end on a positive note with.
If you are a barber or a cosmetologist, do this because it's your craft and it's your calling, not because it's just a paycheck and quick money for you. That way we can all create good hair.
I love it. Well, Jackie, thank you for being a guest here on this podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'll be seeing you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Claire, too. Thank you so much.
My thanks again to Jackie at the Barbershop at the collection in Oxnard. And if you want to learn more about this unique barbershop, or if you just want to book an appointment, check the description of this podcast episode and follow the Barbershop on social media. And if you like this episode and love the podcast, please rate it. Go to Apple Podcast and rate it there. We are on all major platforms for podcasts. So tell your friends, tell your family, and that way we can get more ears listening to this podcast. All right. Well, I hope that all of you are having a great weekend. Let's keep it that way. And until next time, good night. Good luck.